Sasha Ahmed. I'm the Administrative Assistant District Attorney for the Ulster County District Attorney's Office. I also serve as the Director of Communications. Today we are here to announce an indictment. With me is Sheriff Juan Figueroa, County Executive Jen Metzger, State Police Major Mike Sumnick, Captain Chris Kyle of the State Police Lieutenant Imani Kirkland, Ulster County Sheriff's Office Captain Joe Sudo, and Chief Assistant District Attorney Elizabeth Camoni Mills. District Attorney Manny Nagy could not be here today. He is in the middle of a homicide trial in county court, but we will hear his remarks when Chief ADA Camoni Mills speaks. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ulster County Sheriff Juan Figueroa.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming. This is a horrific event that happened on or about Easter Sunday, involving a homicide of a human being that was dismembered. Total disregard for human life. Absolutely horrible. When I got called that evening and I came out, I saw the collaboration of all these men and women that you see behind me and in the back of the room. The Ulster County Sheriff's Office, Detective Division, the Criminal Division, the New York State Police, ECI in Ellenville, the Troop F Forensics Investigations Unit, and the Troop F Major Crimes Unit. These folks worked over 72 hours straight to make sure that the person responsible for this crime was apprehended. I can't thank all of you for the hard work that you've done regarding such a vicious crime. I also want to thank the Ulster County crime victims, and of course our District Attorney Emmanuel Nagy, and our Chief Assistant District Attorney, who was also there that night and the days to follow, and that's Chief Assistant Elizabeth Camoni Mills, who will be speaking later on. I'd like to turn this over to Captain Joe Sudo.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming. My name is Joseph Sudo. I'm the captain with the Ulster County Sheriff's Office, Special Operations and Investigations Unit. Before I get started on why we're here today and go into some of the details, on behalf of the men and women of the Ulster County Sheriff's Office, we would like to express our sincere condolences to the family of the victim and to let them know that our thoughts and prayers are with them during this time as they grieve the loss of a loved one. On April 1st, at approximately 9:49 p.m., our office was notified by Scranton Police to check the welfare of a missing person known as Alberta Dale, 44 years of age, of Scranton, Pennsylvania. The family had reported her missing to Scranton Police because they had not heard from Mrs. Dale since the 31st of March. She was last known to be in the company of Damon Foy, 50 years of age, of Kerhonkson, New York. On April 1st, at approximately 10:14 p.m., deputies arrived at the last known address of Mr. Foy on Granite Road in the town of Rochester. Upon deputies' arrivals, they located Mrs. Dale's vehicle unoccupied in the parking lot. That night, deputies made contact with Mr. Foy, and Mr. Foy allowed deputies inside his apartment, and they searched for Mrs. Dale, but she was not found. On the morning of April 2nd, our office increased our search efforts after evidence was recovered and located on Route 4455 in the town of Rochester. In the late afternoon of April 2nd, the decision was made to send deputies and detectives to Mr. Foy's apartment to interview him, obtain more information, and to possibly see if Miss Dale had returned. At 5 p.m., detectives and deputies arrived at Mr. Foy's apartment and they made contact with him, except this time his demeanor had changed. He allowed detectives and deputies inside his apartment and they searched for Mrs. Dale. It wasn't until a detective located evidence to suggest that a crime had been committed inside the apartment. At that time, my office began to draft a search warrant for Mr. Foy's apartment. Mr. Foy was then invited back to the Ulster County Sheriff's Office to see if he would be interviewed. As he was being escorted out of the apartment, Mr. Foy removed a taser from a sheriff's deputy, then activated said taser and pointed it at deputies. A deputy reacted and punched Mr. Foy to recover the taser, and Mr. Foy fell to the ground. He was subsequently transported to Ellenville Regional Hospital under the supervision of Ulster County Sheriff's deputies. The search warrant for Mr. Foy's apartment was signed by the Honorable Brian Rounds of the Ulster County Court. And shortly after midnight on April 3rd, the New York State Police Forensic Investigation Unit, Major Crimes Unit, the Ulster County Sheriff's Office, and the Ulster County District Attorney's Office executed the search warrant on Mr. Foy's apartment. During the search, human remains were recovered and were identified as those of Mrs. Dale. It was also discovered at this time and determined that Mrs. Dale had been dismembered. Through investigation, additional remains belonging to Ms. Dale were recovered in the town of Marlborough. Upon Mr. Foy's release from the hospital in the late afternoon of April 3rd, he was placed into custody by Ulster County Sheriff's deputies and charged with murder in the second degree. He was arraigned in the town of Esopus Justice Court by the Honorable Pierce Gallagher and was remanded to the Ulster County Bail without jail. I would like to thank the Ulster County District Attorney's Office, the New York State Police Major Crimes Unit, the Forensic Investigation Unit, BCI, Ulster County Crime Victims, and the Ulster County Special Victims Bureau for their assistance with this investigation. I would like to now introduce Chief Assistant District Attorney Liz Kamo.
Good afternoon, everyone. Alberta Dale, also known as Alberta Fox, was a 44-year-old mother and grandmother who was adored by her family and especially her grandchildren. Today is about the first steps in getting justice for Alberta and being her voice to shed light on the way in which she was brutally taken from our community and from those that loved her. Last week, an Ulster County grand jury heard testimony in connection with this case and subsequently handed up an 8-count indictment charging Damon Foy with crimes related to the murder and dismemberment of Alberta Dale. This morning, Damon Foy was arraigned before the Honorable Brian Rounds in Ulster County Court on that indictment, charging him with murder in the second degree, aggravated criminal contempt, concealment of a human corpse, criminal contempt in the first degree, criminal mischief in the third degree, assault in the third degree, criminal obstruction of breathing or blood circulation, and criminal possession of a weapon in the fourth degree. The defendant was remanded today without bail. As you are aware, DA Manny Nagy is currently engaged in a homicide trial in Ulster County Court. However, he has prepared a statement for which he's asked me to read to you today. This case showcases in one person the evil of domestic violence. Let there be no speculation about mental health. As often happens, this was pure exhibition of evil. The total disregard for the life and dignity of another person is at the heart of domestic violence. Damon Foy has shown us that. As we prosecute this case and pay our respects to the family of Alberta Dale, we must recognize in our laws the rights of victims to be actually safe from the main source of the danger targeted for them, and demand laws that actually protect victims. I'm fortunate enough to have today here with me members of our Special Victims Bureau, our Bureau Chief Jenna Hastings, and Assistant District Attorney Luba Reznikova, who have also been working day in and day out on this case. Please understand that this is an open and active investigation and a currently pending prosecution, and we will not be able to go into many details in order to protect the integrity of the prosecution. However, at this time, we will take questions if there are any. Yes?
The defendant he had open charges against him for domestic violence against the victim. Is that correct?
Yes, those charges have been joined in the indictment that Mr. Foy was arraigned on today. Yes,
Was there an order of protection for Alberta Fox prior to this?
yes, there was. Any other questions?
For the original charges, in January, he was released on an appearance ticket, right? He was ROR.
No, Damon Foy posted bail on those charges, and he was released on bail with an order of protection for Ms. Dale.
Do you know what that bail was?
The bail that was posted was $5,000 cash, $10,000 bond, and $40,000 partially secured bond, which he posted.
And where did the victim live? It wasn't with the defendant, right? Because there was a restraining order, so she,
So at the time of her homicide,
yes.
she was living out of state.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Can you clarify where the other remains were found? So, and the circumstances, did he, he dismembered her and then was scattering the remains?
At this time, because this is a pending prosecution, I'm unable to answer that question at this time.
Are you able to elaborate on his criminal history at all? Was it just those pending charges, or had he been arrested before?
Again, based on the fact this is a pending prosecution, I'm unable to answer that question at this time, but thank you for your question. Okay, thank you.
That's going to conclude this press conference. Thank you again for all attending.
Thanks, Scott.